Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our panel of current education ministers, both of whom are leaders of education systems in emerging markets in Africa. We're hoping that at some point we might be joined by another couple of ministers, but for now we're going to make a start with our two guests here. I'm joined here by Debbie Schafer, who is the Provincial Minister of Education of Western Cape, and Matthew Prempeh, who is the Minister of Education for the Government of Ghana. Welcome.
Thank you.
What I'd like to do in this session is to explore the education systems in some of our target markets, where for the last 3 days, contestants within the Tomorrow competition have been pitching their products and services, really focused on bridging that educational divide and focusing on low-income and emerging countries. I'd like to ask Your Excellencies, first of all, to individually just share with us some context of your education system and tell us a bit about the education reform or education improvement challenges that you're facing. Could I start with you, sir?
Thank you. In Ghana, okay, let me start by saying that thanks for inviting me here. Back home in Ghana, our education system, formal education, starts from kindergarten. We formalized kindergarten into education system. So we have 2 years of kindergarten, 6 years of primary, 3 years of junior high school, 3 years of senior high school, and 3 years or 3 or 4 years of tertiary education. Basically, that's how we are organized. And currently, we went into office last year, and there's a reform process. We came to meet and going through the whole system. We came to meet it, but we have continued in teacher reform, teacher education reform. We have a system where those with diplomas get appointed as teachers immediately after school. And those who have been to university and are graduates don't get appointed. They have to struggle for jobs. So our key reform in teacher education to improve quality is to make sure that at least the entrance grade is the same, and the entrance grade becomes at least a graduate from the university to help improve on the quality, because our whole idea is to improve learning outcomes through quality education. And that's the key thing. We also linked our teacher reform to our new curricular reform that we are doing, so that at least for the teachers going through initial training, when they come out, we don't have to spend much time on them knowing the new curriculum they are going to meet. So we are syncing our teacher reform with our school curricular reform to make sure that each side knows what is going to happen. The teacher under training knows that when I get to the classroom, this is what I'm going to be confronted with. That reform process will lead to an assessment. We want to have a national assessment as well as an international assessment of our school, because we want to drive learning outcomes. We want to set numeracy and literacy targets fundamentally to make sure that our kids don't just pass through the system, they achieve a certain level before, if there's a need for intervention, bring in the necessary intervention before it is rather too late. Because what we are finding is that many of our kids are not achieving as we expect them to achieve. We look at our education for all goals for 2020, and Ghana seems to have met all the access goals. What we lack is quality. And quality, we think we can drive it with technology as a leverage through teacher education, curricular reform, teaching and learning materials being delivered and being student-friendly, so that we can at least match our learning objectives and our goals that we've set for ourselves.
Thank you very much. Could I turn to you, Debbie?
Thanks, yeah. Our education system, we aren't as advanced as Ghana with our pre-primary school. We are still trying to get universal access to grade R. We've made huge progress, but it's not quite there yet. We have primary school from grade 1 to 7, and then high school from grade 8 to 12, which is our exit certificate. Our priorities, I'm a provincial minister, so we have 9 provinces in our country, and I'm in the Western Cape. Our education system is quite interesting because we're the only province that is governed by the one political party, and the rest of the country and other provinces are governed by a different one. So it's quite interesting for us because our constitution allows for concurrent competency in basic education. So we are pushing a few boundaries as a province that doesn't always make the national government quite so happy, but generally I think it does, because we are pretty much on the same page across the country as far as what we're wanting to achieve. We don't always necessarily agree on how we want to achieve it. Our main priorities in the Western Cape for the last at least 5 to 10 years have really been getting the basics right. Our literacy and numeracy is not where it should be. Every time we get our pearls and TIMS, we are on the up, but we're nowhere near where we want to be, and we certainly aren't competitive enough in the world as at the moment. So we're focusing hugely on mathematics and languages. We're also focusing a lot on retention, because we lose a lot of our children in the system from grade 1 upwards. We've achieved that in between grade 10 and 12. We're the highest in the country retention rate. But when you look at from grade 1 up, it's not that good. So, and at the same time, we're trying to do that, and we are doing that very successfully, but we are struggling a lot with increasing learner numbers in the province where the money doesn't follow them, because we are doing well in the country as a whole. One of our neighboring provinces, the Eastern Cape in particular, has a system that's pretty much fallen apart. So every year we get a lot more people coming to the Western Cape and wanting education because it's better, but we aren't getting the money that follows them, because the national government formula is designed in such a way that it lags far behind what we actually have to provide for. So we are trying also to make sure we bring technology in, because we want to make sure that our learners have 21st century skills. We want to make sure that when they leave school, they don't look at a computer for the first time and say, what on earth is this? So we are doing that a lot. We've made it a specific focus in our government since 2014, and we've made a lot of progress over the last 3.5 years or so, connecting to broadband. But when it comes to devices and so on, it's just far too expensive for us to be able to deliver a device per child.
Okay, thank you. And you've brought us nicely on to my next question, actually, which was to explore in a bit more detail some of the context for EdTech solutions. I know we've had a lot of discussion looking at products and services that could really help to bridge the educational divide. Could you tell us a little more about the context for education technology in your country and the extent to which you have success stories and what challenges remain?
Thank you. If you look at the map of Ghana, it's a huge country about the size of the United Kingdom, with a huge rural area population where teachers don't want to go. And I don't blame them. I just don't blame them. They just don't want to go. And even if they go, because initially they have to, as soon as they settle as teachers, they find themselves in other places. So we have to, it's imperative that we deploy technology to solve that problem. If we just listen to the last speaker, if we can get technology to the students, pupils, even at the age of 4, 5, 6, they will do tremendously well, with or without support. When you see how the kids love technology, as if they were born, the DNA is imprinted with the current technologies going. You don't even have to teach them how to maneuver themselves. So it's imperative. But what technology to deploy is the problem. We have last mile problems where internet or high-speed broadband is not available to most of the areas. Do we have to rely on the mobile networks? What technology? Ghana is struggling. Since we've been in office, we've looked at lots of technologies where we have even on pen drives with operating systems where kids can plug into any old computer and it boots, and we have the curriculum on it. We've had Ghanaians that have developed smart tablets like Kindle type that last for electricity-wise. When you plug it and we charge it, it can stay for about a month before you recharge with curricula on. But we are also developing our curricula. So deploying technology is becoming a problem for us, especially getting it to the last mile. Because if we can get it to the last mile and can put our content and our tests and lots of things on, we can. But what uniquely Ghana is doing, that we are getting partnership from Microsoft and things, wanting to partner as Leapfrog, is to have what we call our iBoxes. These are offline, online servers where we've put content, we've put open source material. Students can interact with the server independently. 100 students or more can interact. We can track students on those servers, and we put them in schools. And we want to link up with Wi-Fi so that they serve the whole community. I was in Kenya recently, and one startup group had developed a Wi-Fi where there are masts that can send it to a 10-kilometer radius. So we are looking at different versions of technology to be able to send and interact two ways. We have a Vaki Foundation is doing some fantastic work in Ghana, where they are using satellite technology to take teaching to the most remotest part of the country, that they are going to do it for teacher education. And we have to just assessing the technologies that we have to deploy, because there are lots now that will suit us, is something that we are going through. But there are lots. I'm particularly struck by one technology that on tablets that has its own operating system. It's not the ones that we have around, that the kids can jailbreak. That operating system will take you to only educational app stores that you direct them. Or else, the bad side of the technology would also be visited upon the kids, which we don't want to. So there are a lot of things that we are looking and experimenting and thinking through how to deploy. But whatever we do, we should be mindful of cost, because we are a developing country. And arrangement, proprietary arrangement that says pay huge amounts of millions of dollars to us every year, we cannot take, because we don't have the resources to do that. So we want cheap but efficient technology that can help us actually, the word is leapfrog, to leverage or to make sure that we develop quality education to our rural folks.
Great, that's fantastic context, thank you. And Deborah, if I could turn to you, you've already given us a little bit of your context, but what have you found that's working in your region, and what are the things that maybe haven't worked so well?
Well, as I say, we've made quite a lot of progress with broadband, so there's kind of intranet in the province. But, I mean, we also have some rural areas, I suspect maybe not quite as rural as Ghana, but even there we find it difficult for teachers to get there. They don't want to go there either. But the difficulty we have is that it's those same areas where we can't always get technology to, because it's difficult to get the fiber or whatever it is. The other issue we face that's really difficult is we have terrible theft problems. So we try and install, even fiber, and before you know it, it's stolen and dug up. So we're now having to resort to putting in notices, this is not worth anything. So it's, practical things like that you can't even, you can't just assume you come here, we can use an app, because we don't always have the connectivity. So the further away from the city, that is still a problem for us, as well as the cost also for us. I mean, every time that we're still very dependent on the rand-dollar exchange rate, which is not very favorable to us at all. So we do a budget. We've got a very detailed plan in the Western Cape for how we're going to roll out local area networks also, the last mile to schools. It's hugely expensive for us. So we're looking for any kind of solution. I was particularly interested this morning in your, what is it, the dot whatever?
The dot learn.
Because in South Africa too, the data costs are huge. They're ridiculously expensive. So we need to have solutions that use very little data. But still, as I say, we don't always have the devices for every child. So what we're doing, what have been success stories in that respect, is even if we can't afford that, we are at least making, our target is 40% of our classrooms will be smart classrooms by, I see my HOD there, 2020. Then we also, we have a slim lab, so we're trying to ensure that every school has at least got some connectivity so that they can get onto these different programs. Where I'm not sure I agree with my colleague is that you can just give them technology and they'll do their own thing. I don't think that's necessarily the case with kids. They'll get onto those things, and maybe if you only go onto that kind of specific educational app, but they'll still have to know where to go for what, So I do feel that we do need to make sure that our teachers are trained very well. And what we have done there as well is we've developed a self-assessment tool for our teachers, so they can go onto this tool and see where they are without feeling embarrassed or wherever that they aren't very tech savvy. And at the end of it, they will then be directed to an appropriate course that they can follow to upskill themselves. So that's been a huge success. The broadband has been a huge success. We've got what we call 18 model schools, where we're going to have the whole solution, where we're going to have 9 primary and 9 high schools, where they will have devices, where we're going to test out different content as well as devices to see what works better. I think that's showing quite some success. And we also have a lot of pilots of content in our schools. In fact, one of my DGs calls us the Air Force because he says we have so many pilots at the moment. So we do that.
Thank you. And I've just seen Felipe Sigollo has just joined us, who is the Minister of Education, Vice Minister of the Ministry of Education in Brazil. Please do join us, sir. I don't know whether are you mic'd up? You're not mic'd up. Maybe we could just have a handheld microphone? Thanks, Gillian. Great. Thank you for joining us, sir. So we've just been starting a discussion here about the context of education in our ministers' own countries, and the extent to which EdTech has been a success, and whether there are lessons to be learnt. Maybe I'll let you process that for a moment, because I know you've come in to us, and maybe I can call on you in a moment. But while we give our colleague a little time to think, maybe I could just ask the two of you whether there may be startups, I think, in our audience here who are considering where they should take their products next. They may be considering South Africa, they may be considering Ghana. What advice would you give to them to support their success in that market?
Thank you. Currently in Ghana, we are very, very open-minded about the various technologies that are available and how we can use them in the country. This is the best time to be there and demonstrate and showcase. And if Western Cape is calling itself the Air Force, Ghana would say we are in the middle of making the soup. So everything is being thrown in for us to see. So we will be able to engage anybody who comes and give a slice of the country, go through all 11 and see how we can really deploy the technology to the last mile. That is the key thing, to the last mile. We also have a system where we are making sure that there's a student center for self-directed learning. So technologies that would transform curricula into content that would be available for student-led learning to happen is some of the things that we are very much interested in. But we are also opening a huge gap of students because of our free secondary education we introduced last September. We have more students going to secondary schools, and hopefully that will be entering the tertiary institutions very soon. So we are thinking even about opening university that will rely solely on technology and things like that. So the opportunities are immense. The costs now are high, but if you use Ghana as an experimental lab, we can see how best and how we can introduce. On the other side of government, we are doing a fast-track industrialization process where we call one district, one factory. Some of these startups can have access to resources, or we can complement them to start building some of these things in Ghana so that the government, other parts of the government can contribute because of its job creation effects to start some of these factories in Ghana so that they can have access to the market.
Fantastic, thank you. And just before we go forward, is it possible to have headsets so that we can understand for the audience? Thank you. Sorry, could I?
Okay. Yes, if you want to, yes, we are the Air Force, so we are certainly also open-minded. What I would suggest if people want to come is, we often have a lot of people wanting to come and they all want us to pay for their stuff. We can't do that. So don't come and ask us for money. Come with solutions, preferably a nice philanthropic donor or something who'll be prepared to test it for you. And we'll be very happy to pilot it. One thing we have a huge problem with in South Africa, I don't know about other countries' legislation, is our procurement processes. So we aren't able to just say we want your product and we're going to just buy it. So, we can pilot things, but there's still no guarantee that you're going to get, if we decide we want to use your product, we still have to go out and open tender. So really, the more unique your product is, the better for you, because then it's unlikely you'll have any competition. So that's the one suggestion. Because of the procurement issues, we also are working, our Premier has been very seized with trying to ensure that we are very open to education technology. And we are working with a partner called City, which is Cape IT Initiative. They've started this thing called Ingenie, which I know Jamie Martin was speaking here too. And they are going to be working on helping startups to develop in our country and in the province. And it's quite innovative. So they're working together closely with us so we can also try and sort of circumvent some kind of, not in a bad way, but just get around the procurement issues that we face. So I think just first of all, know your context. Also come and work with the department. Don't do your own thing and then come tell us you've got a solution for our problems. Come find out what our problems are first and how we could work together to try and develop a solution. Because we often find people just really don't understand our context. There still are people who think we have lions walking around the streets and stuff. And you really just come here and see what it's like before you actually decide.
Thank you, that's great advice. Do we have a way of communicating the... Okay, fantastic. So we don't need headsets. Thank you very much, team. Maybe I could just ask you to provide some comments following on from our ministers here. Maybe you could just tell us about the education context in Brazil, tell us about the context for education technology, and any advice that you have for startups wishing to join the market in Brazil.
I would like speaking in Portuguese, if it's possible.
So we can translate you, yes.
Ok. Bom, primeiro, desculpas.
So first of all,
Posso? Desculpas pelo meu atraso.
first of all,
A gente estava numa reunião de
I have been
ministros.
delayed. We
No, it's
had
all right.
a meeting of ministers.
I think we'll need to say something and then pause for the translation and then say something else.
Ok.
Okay, thank you.
So first of all, I wanted to apologize because of my delay, because I was attending another meeting of ministers.
O Brasil é um país continental.
Brazil is a continental country.
São 50 milhões de alunos.
We have 50 million pupils.
2,5 milhões de professores.
2.5 million of teachers.
E mais de 200 mil escolas.
And we have more than 200,000 schools.
O desafio do Ministério da Educação
The challenge for the Ministry of Education
é melhorar agora a qualidade.
is to improve the quality.
Nos anos anteriores,
From the past years,
o Brasil já conseguiu colocar suas crianças na escola.
Brazil already achieved to place their children at school.
A educação básica está universalizada,
The basic education has been globalized,
mas o desempenho dos alunos, o aprendizado ainda é muito ruim.
but the attainment of the pupils still is not as good as it should be.
Nos indicadores como PISA, os alunos não têm um bom desempenho.
According to these PISA studies, the pupils in Brazil do not achieve good marks.
Nós temos investido em formação de professores,
We have invested doing the training for the teachers,
conectar as escolas na internet, na banda larga,
connecting the schools in the broad net,
currículo comum nacional,
the common national curriculum,
e ensino médio flexível.
and a medium teaching that is a flexible one.
Só o Brasil tinha 13 disciplinas obrigatórias por 3 anos.
Brazil had just three subjects that were compulsory during 3 years.
Os jovens de 15 a 17 anos acabavam saindo da escola, abandonavam a escola.
The young people being from 15 to 17 years old, they would be dropouts.
E uma reforma no ano passado agora priorizou a formação profissional e flexibilizou isso.
And the reform of the last year, they prioritized the reform, the professional reform.
grande investimento agora em internet, banda larga, novas práticas pedagógicas, em tecnologia. O Ministério da Educação acredita muito que a tecnologia possa ajudar nesse aprendizado.
So nowadays, the Ministry of Education is making big investments into technology with the broadband and so on, because this will help the schools a lot.
Acho que é um pouco isso.
Okay.
So this is what I wanted, the message I wanted to convey.
Thank you so much. In a moment, I'm just going to ask for any questions from the floor. I'm sure you would like the opportunity to quiz our Ministers of Education. You may have some questions for them about their markets and about how you might want to take some of your own products forward. First, I'll just ask you, sir, whether you have any advice for startups wishing to come into Brazil.
É um país muito aberto.
Brazil is an open country.
Alguns estados, alguns municípios já têm programas de estímulo, de apoio às startups.
There are some states in Brazil that have some programs that have been tailored in order to promote these startups.
Temos muitos problemas
We have many problems,
para que vocês ajudem numa solução.
so that you can help us bringing out solutions.
E importantes parceiros da sociedade civil também apoiando, como o Instituto Ayrton Senna, que tem participado aqui, Fundação Lehman, entre outros.
And then we have the participation as well, the partnership of the civil society, such as an institution, Ayrton Senna, and another institution that have been participating as well.
O Brasil tem 63 universidades federais.
Brazil has got 63 federal universities
E 42 institutos federais.
and 42 federal institutes.
Através dessas instituições, ou mesmo pelo Ministério da Educação, as startups são muito bem-vindas na ajuda de soluções.
So the startups are very much welcome in order to find solutions.
Especialmente para a qualidade da educação, para problemas do nosso cotidiano de gestão das escolas, enfim, transporte, merenda, qualquer outro setor.
So this startup would be very important for the daily life, for simple issues, also such as transport, for the food that the pupils take, and also for the way the schools are administrated, and so on.
Thank you very much. Could I take any questions from the floor? Sir, here we'll go to you and then on to you. Thank you.
First of all, thank you very much to Your Excellencies for taking the time to talk to us small little fish. We appreciate it. My question, Mike, I run a startup called Ustad Mobile. I had the privilege of living for 8 years in Afghanistan, where we had some education challenges in different areas. And I was wondering what you think about the balance between education technology in the hands of the child, let's say the front-end education technology, and the back-end of education technology, like the EMIS systems, the data tracking, the teacher training, which sometimes it seems that it can get bang for the buck, but it's not so visible. So I was wondering what you think, or what your advice is on the priority and the balance there.
Thank you. Would anyone like to comment?
Okay, I think, yeah, you certainly, it does need to be a balance. You can't have one without the other. We are moving more and more towards data-driven decision-making, and one of the pilots that we are busy with at the moment gives us analytics, for example, but only if the teachers actually use it and connect, which half of them don't bother to do. So if you need to somehow work out a plan of how they will have to connect, try and encourage them to do that and make it worth their while, because otherwise it doesn't really help us. I don't think a device in the hand of a child alone is the solution. You've got to have a teacher training as well, because to move a system forward that is as big as education systems are, ours is nothing like the size of Brazil, but even ours is 1 million children and 32,000 teachers. It doesn't happen overnight. So it really is important. You can't just come with a solution and say, here you go. You know, our teachers do need to be able to at least oversee the implementation in the classroom and make sure that it is being used properly by the children.
Thank you. Any other comments?
We have the MS and all those tracking systems, courtesy of a USAID program. What we want to do is to make it across the whole nation, because you have to find out what the teacher is doing in the classroom. Whether, even whilst the teacher is in the classroom, whether he or she is teaching how he or she should, and whether the children are really learning. And there's only technology now that can let us do it and track it seamlessly. So we have to do a lot of training for the circuit supervisors that oversee the teachers to know what they are doing, so the teachers themselves to know what they are doing in the class. And some of these technologies offer incredible tools, resource to the teachers, because I just encountered one where it even shows the teacher how to deliver a course that the teacher is not very comfortable with. So these resources should be available to the teacher when the teacher needs it, especially when the teacher knows what to do. And it's only technology that can let us do what we hope we can do today. And so we have to marry it, the back end and the front end, to make a better product out of it. Achieve learning outcomes, make sure the teachers are doing right, the school is being supervised, the environment is safe and secure. To do all that, it's only technology that will allow us to do it and do it well. And so we have to be very, very open to it and train the teachers. Some of them are not familiar with the computers and things, so we have to have special programs for them to train and a lot of things. And continuous professional development. You don't hope to train a teacher once and get to the classroom and nothing. And what tools are we offering the teacher? So it's a combination of things. We have to be able to chew gum and walk at the same time.
Can I just add something, if you don't mind? I mean, the other problem we do have is bigger and bigger class sizes. Our budget is so stretched that we have our classes are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And one thing that is very useful as well is some things I've seen where the teachers can get constant feedback, real-time feedback in the classroom. So that also helps them to deal with bigger classes where they have people at different levels of educational development as well. So.
Great, thank you. Would you like to make any comments, sir?
Concordo com o que foi dito, formação de professores é essencial.
I agree with what has been said. The training of teachers is crucial.
A tecnologia é inevitável desde a criança recém-nascida pela vida toda.
The technology is also very important nowadays. The children use it since the moment they are born until all the life.
No Brasil, nós tivemos uma experiência ruim tentando distribuir tablets para todos os alunos.
We had a bad experience in Brazil when we tried to give away tablets to all the pupils.
Mas sem conectividade, sem conteúdo, a política foi um fracasso.
Without connectivity, without context, that politic turned out to be a failure.
O grande desafio, um grande desafio agora no Brasil é a avaliação no computador, avaliação online, fazer a prova no computador.
The big challenge nowadays in Brazil is actually the assessment that can be done online.
Porque nós temos o Enem tem 8 milhões de participantes em todo o Brasil, a prova para entrada nas universidades públicas.
We have a test in order to enter a public university, and it's taught by 8 million students in order to enter to study into these universities.
E é extremamente difícil garantir a segurança e muito caro. A gente gasta 300 milhões de dólares para realizar essa prova todo ano.
So first of all, it's very expensive because we spend $300 million in order to make these tests, and also we have to make sure that we are using the necessary safe mechanisms.
E o ensino adaptativo, através de algoritmos, a gente poder saber o que a criança precisa aprender e já direcionar o conteúdo adequado.
We teach also through algorithms, and we try to find what the children need to learn.
Thank you very much. Do feel free to address your question to either any of our panelists or all of them.
Okay, sure, thanks. Thank you all for coming from another small fish. There is a growing trend among developed countries of making mandatory computer science education, computational thinking, programming, etc. I understand that in developing countries, resources are more limited, but what are your thoughts about how to address this growing need, or even plans, if you have some?
We in Ghana are just about, we started a program with IBM to introduce coding into schools. We started from our senior high school and will be going down with time. But yes, we want to even change the examination to have ICT as one of the core courses that you'll be examined on. So it becomes English, Maths, ICT. Because that is where the world is going. Whether you are in a developing country or a developed country, the global village has caught on with everybody, and we have to prepare ourselves for kids that are globally competitive. So yes, we back home want to do that and do it. So we started from the secondary schools, the fewer number of secondary schools, 600 and something. I hope that we have some 3 programs, one with the World Bank, one with the support of the Belgian government, to put an audiovisual lab in every school connected to the Wi-Fi. We have ICT teachers. We don't have enough. So at least the secondary schools, they are there to start ICT and make it compulsory so that they just go and learn it for fun. They learn it as a tool for their working life. And then gradually bring it to the junior high school and the primary school. In our curricular reform for the lower schools, we are introducing something we call creativity. And it includes science, maths, and everything. And we hope that we can gradually start letting our kids get used to what they will be facing in the future.
Thank you. Any other comments from the panel? Yes?
Yeah, okay, I think I've answered what our plans are in the previous question largely, but as far as being compulsory is concerned, in the provinces, that's the one area we don't have competence over, is the curriculum, and that is done nationally. And at the moment, it isn't. It's not a compulsory subject. It is an optional subject in the higher levels of high school, our FET phase. So it's not compulsory, but because we do believe it's important, even though it isn't compulsory as a subject specifically, that is why we have this huge focus on e-learning and why we've developed this very, very detailed plan. We've used the Sir Michael Barber's deliverology methodology, where you literally plan every step of the way, and then you see where things are going and where they're being stuck to try and sort them out. It is unaffordable for everybody, but we've tried to do what we can within what we have. And we also, there's one thing that frustrates me a lot is that there are many people who want to pay, who have corporate social responsibility funding and so on, and they've all got their own pet projects, but no one really coordinates any of that into what government's actually doing. And we have tried to attract some corporate funding to our plan and showed them in detail what we actually have planned to do and what we need to roll it out. So it's not like going into a black hole. We have a very specific plan that will ultimately end up being connectivity for every school and every child, but we will have connectivity in every school, even if it is only one point, like one classroom, for example. But at least that's the start, and we will move on from there.
Thank you. And Mr. Sigollo.
O Brasil tem 200 milhões de habitantes.
Brazil has got 200 million inhabitants.
90% já tem celular.
90% out of them have got a mobile phone.
Hoje tem mais celulares do que habitantes no Brasil.
Nowadays we have more mobile phones rather than inhabitants in Brazil.
E pelo menos 75% já tem acesso à internet.
And 75% of the population nowadays have got access to internet.
O contato com a tecnologia é inerente.
So actually this contact to the technology is very much present there in Brazil.
E o que eu acho importante na educação é direcionar corretamente o conteúdo, fazer com que ele aprenda com a tecnologia.
What is very important with this technology is to put it in a way that the pupil learns from the context.
Mas ele já tem contato, principalmente os mais jovens, e vão continuar tendo cada vez mais, isso vai estar cada vez mais presente na sua vida.
And the technology will be more and more present in their lives.
Thank you. Any further questions? One at the back, thank you.
Hi, my name is Natalia Gavrilica. I'm from the Global Innovation Fund. But before I worked at the Global Innovation Fund, I worked for the Ministry of Education in my home country of Moldova. And I have a lot of sympathy for what has been said about government's capacity to dedicate money, fund EdTech solutions, do procurement, and so on. At the same time, now I work for a funder, and what we need to see is what is the pathway to scale and who will sustainably fund this at scale. And in some way, if we are, for example, if we have evidence that a pilot is particularly effective, then what are we doing to scale up that pilot and change what is being done right now? And this will mean dedicating resources. So how do we sort of overcome this challenge? What do the governments need to see to be able to reorient resources and do procurement and do everything that a government does, not just to buy hardware, but to buy effective software? Does this mean, educating parents? Does this mean how to recognize sort of an effective tool, or does this mean working with teachers? And, is this political economy insurmountable?
Any responses to this question? Big question, thank you.
Political speech.
I had a discussion, lovely discussion on those lines with a gentleman from Portugal. And interestingly, he was talking about how Portugal got the mobile phone companies to deploy in the last mile, because they made business sense that those communities that don't have it, even if one child gets a laptop or one child is connected or the school is connected, the whole community can engage the government and public services through a better way. So whilst it didn't make sense, they made a business case out of something that didn't make sense. Then the mobile phone companies saw the need to help government to get to the last mile, because they could make money out of it, because they will sell data bands and things like that. So it has to, now that prices are coming down because we are more having fiber optic and access, these are the things we have to make sense to the private companies in going to the last mile and how they are going to benefit for it. And the whole debate starts changing. That the child does not only learn in school, there are after-school programs that when he gets into the community, you should make the parents be interested and support the child's education whilst at home. So it should make sense, especially in the startups, to even use Wi-Fi to move from the school to the next nearest community if they can travel 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 10 kilometers. So we have to start making a business case in supporting last mile deployment, and then it would help.
Thank you. We have been joined by our fourth minister. Thank you so much for joining us, madam. This is Leonor Brionesthe, from the Secretary of the Department for Education for the Philippines. You're very welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. We've been having a very interesting discussion about the context of several countries. We have South Africa, Ghana, and Brazil represented alongside you here, madam. And I've been just asking our ministers to comment a bit on the educational context and also any advice that you have for EdTech startups wanting to come and serve your markets. We only have a few moments left, but I wondered whether you could just share some comments with our audience.
First of all, the Philippines Department of Education, which we call our ministry, is typical of many ministries of education in Asia. We are huge. We are monstrous. In the Philippines, we have, in terms of teachers, we have nearly 700,000 teachers, 26.6 million learners just for basic education. We have the largest budget as provided for in the Constitution in the entire national budget system. So we have a huge bureaucracy with 17 regions. Now, when the new administration came in, the senior high school program was introduced. 2 more years of senior high school education were added. And this has posed a tremendous challenges in spite of 5 years of preparation. Because of sheer size alone, obviously, one cannot manage, one cannot oversee, one cannot regulate an educational system with 46,000 schools. And as I said, 26.6 million learners by just the usual way of management. And this is where ICT definitely is desperately needed. This is not to say that the Philippines does not already have an IT system, but it has to be further enhanced and improved with the additional feature of the senior high school, which is 2 years, with vast requirements for more teachers, school rooms, buildings, computer classrooms, laboratories, equipment. It's not only a question of additional technology, but also of other facilities which are needed. We also have 4 strands in our basic education system, which is the academic program, the technical vocational program, sports, and then we also have the arts. Now, you were asking, where do we need technology, ICT, the most? As I said, this is not that we are starting from zero. It's just that we have to do a lot of catching up to manage the huge size of our responsibilities. One is in the integration of our curriculum, because we have a new curriculum for senior high school, which has to be integrated with all other years of basic education. Second is in teacher development. Our law for which declared senior high school mandates that our learners should be taught 21st century skills, and that includes computing, creative thinking, analytical capacities, etc., which are very different from what our teachers were trained for. So there is also a requirement for teacher development. But if you have 684,000 teachers, then you cannot teach them one-on-one. You cannot go to all the regions. And this is where technology is also needed. We also need technology and learning resources. While we like to think that we are familiar with technology and ICT and the capital regions, the Philippines, like many Asian countries, has a wide range of contrasts. We have 7,100 islands. We have mountains. And we have places where technology is very advanced. And we have also places where there is no connectivity, where islands are very difficult to reach and mountains are difficult to climb. So we need more learning resources, especially in places where there is no connectivity at all. And so to summarize, definitely there is a great need, and I would like to say perhaps an urgent need, to further integrate ICT in education, and also to help out in our curriculum, in our teacher development, as well as in learning resources. We hope in a period of 2 years to be able to to cope up with the needs for computer classrooms, equipment, And since we want to shift also from the use of textbooks, if you have 26 million learners, that's a vast investment and so on, to the use of tablets. We want to eliminate homework, and we want really to, as I said, to enhance the capacities of our teachers. All of this cannot be done manually, one-on-one, island for island, region per region, teacher for teacher, because of our sheer size. Another need, which I see at my level as minister, is because we are so large, and we have, as I said, added the senior high school program, and we have other courses which we have added to our curriculum. We also must have the organizational capacity to manage, to oversee, to regulate, and to monitor what is happening. And this is where we also need to improve our information systems at the level of the ministry. And what's more, because we have a huge budget, we have a massive school building program, massive learning resources program for computers, for learning resources. Therefore, we should also have a good financial management system. And our financial management system, which already had difficulty without the senior high school program, finds it difficult, of course, to cope on a daily basis with the needs for information, the need to take care of our funds. We have the largest budget in the entire country. Our working force is bigger than the combined military forces of our country, the Navy, the Army, the police. You put them all together, we are so much bigger. And to be able to regulate, to manage, to monitor what is happening, our organizational systems, our office systems also need to be upgraded. And not just the classroom, not just the textbook, not just the teachers, but the organizational system itself. We have to improve our accounting system, our disbursement systems. I have 2 undersecretaries for finance, not just one. One for monitoring our huge budget and seeing to it that it is fulfilled, it is implemented. The second is to monitor, the other undersecretary of finance takes care of the disbursement side, because we have to split the accountability aspects. In other agencies of government, they have 2 bids and awards committee. In the department, we have 6 bids and awards committees. And we deal in billions of pesos because of all this catching up that we are trying to do with the rest of the world. And you cannot do it just with improving the learning capacities, the teaching materials, and so on, but the management system itself. The accountability aspect is very crucial in countries like the Philippines, where accountability is of the call of the day. So to summarize, where do we need IT, ICT? We need ICT for curriculum development and for seeing to it that whatever changes that are reaches the farthest island and so on. We need it for teacher capacity building. We need them for our computer laboratories, for our information systems, etc. At the school level, we need ICT, as I said, for other learning resources, our laboratories, because we're trying to catch up with science and technology. And equally important, we need it for the management of the department itself.
Thank you.
Accountability and governance is very, very important with such a huge budget. And it cannot be done. My training is in finance. It cannot be done with our present system. So our bureaucracy is very, very slow in contrast to the requirements of change, which at the school level, which at the curriculum level is demanded of us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your comments. So it just really remains for me to thank our Ministers of Education, our panelists. I feel as though I've been on an educational intercontinental trip around the world, and I have a much better understanding of some of these important, significant markets across the world. Thank you so much for your insights and your participation. Thank you for your questions, and enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you.